Aidan Penny is my name. I believe it's 30 minutes. Who knows? It's with the old conference format. So my background quickly is I started last year. I started a company called Instant Opinion. Prior to that, I was had a consultancy business called Servitize, where I worked with a lot of different organisations in the area of service innovation and service design. And prior to that, I spent about 20 years working for Nikon, the camera company. I worked for them in not in the cool camera side, unfortunately. I worked in the boring semiconductor equipment manufacturing side. So the companies like Intel, when they make their chips, they use Nikon equipment, like the big camera, to print it. Except these things cost about $65 million each. So it's and that's how I got into the whole services piece. Really was because in that business and in that industry, it changed from being one unit of equipment was about $3 million 20 years ago to being about $60 million, and so suddenly the number of customers you had was much smaller, and so this whole service side of the business had to try to grow, and support the business much more and find new ways of delivering services. That got into the whole area of how do you design new service offerings, that space, and that's where I ended up as a service innovation, service design consultant. And then that was very hard work, being a consultant, and decided to try and walk the walk as well as talk the talk, and ended up starting this. So I've got probably, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes talking, and then we can have a chat, Having said that, I've been known to go on, so just stop me, okay? But I'll probably go through it quite quickly. But if you have any questions, just throw in, right? That's the whole point of it. So in Instant Opinion, the idea is that I was talking to businesses. They said, how do we get customer feedback? Is a big issue in a lot of businesses, particularly service businesses. How do we get feedback? And right now, a lot of feedback happens after the event. And our point was, well, how can you get feedback in real time? And there are obviously lots of ways of doing it, so we looked at a few of those ways, but there was a particular gap. So I'll just talk about that story. So our idea is we connect with customers, with businesses in real time. And that's really our kind of core thing. This story is really about our kind of journey in the first 120 days. So we had this idea, what do we want to do with it, and really, these are the days I'm talking about. It's kind of from the 27th of July was a day when I had a meeting with somebody, again, as a consultant. And again, they said to me, I thrown out this idea of real-time feedback, and for a number of times people said to me, if you ever do anything like that, let's look at it, we'd be interested. And we finally got to the stage where I said, well, look, I'll give it a week and see if there's anything in this, So that was back then, and between then and the end of October, we I guess, created the business. So what happened on June 27th, really, as I said to you, I was sitting down as a consultant meeting with another client. It was a hotel in particular. I met quite a few of them. And really, we're talking to them, we kind of found what we thought was a problem worth solving, where we've been speaking to them about this big challenge, particularly in the hospitality sector is an obvious one. There's TripAdvisor and there's all these review websites out there, and that they actually found that they were unmanageable for them, that they had no control. They were often finding out about things when it was too late. And so they were, that industry kind of was looking for some kind of a solution to help them improve in that area. So really part of the problem, if you like, that we found is only about 4% of customers with a problem will tell you about it, but that 91% will leave and won't come back, and then 79% with a bad experience will tell up to about 20 other people. So this is just to kind of frame the problem that we identified. And this is the problem that the people we were talking to at the time were telling us, and one of the big challenge then, that obviously we wrote these slides afterwards, right? But one of the problems people were telling us was that the way, in any business, if it's a service business in particular, the way people give feedback can have a big impact on your business. So if it's, if it's ideally what you want is someone to give you a kind of feedback that's to your face straight away if there's an issue. This is it, there's a problem with your service, okay? But as you saw a minute ago, what's much more likely is they'll tell other people, okay? Or they'll tell the whole world, you know, on different, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on Facebook, it's on, you know, TripAdvisor is a particular one for the travel industry, you know. And our whole point was, what if we can create a new kind of private channel between the service provider and their customers much earlier on. So while the customer is still experiencing the service, because that's when they're actually forming their opinion. And then also, if it can be private and direct, then you can actually respond to it. If it's immediate, you can respond to it while they're still there. But that's really the fundamental piece of our business, and that was the kind of problem or the solution that we tried to put in place, you know. So the story, I guess, I'm telling now is, you know, what we did then around that when we saw that. From this was my kind of the consultancy business. I've been working in the area of trying to apply kind of a service design approach to businesses. Okay, that I don't know if anybody has seen much or read much about service design, but it's really where, you know, when you're designing a product, there's a process. You know, you design it, and you prototype it, and you test it, and you eventually build it and roll it out. Services is a much more difficult challenge because it isn't something tangible, you know, that you actually can, you know, there's a definition what's a service, and it's anything you can't drop on your foot. That's one of the definitions of it. It's not real, so how do you design it, how do you do something with it? And there's tools though that people do use, and there's techniques that you can use to actually do that. And it's actually coming from designers, you know, the design thinking kind of movement, and that it's a bit, you know, it overlaps a lot. Sal this morning was talking about, you know, user experience design and those areas, and believe me, there are whole conferences raging about the difference between service design and user experience design and all those things. But really, you know, my background is business, it's not design, and it's not necessarily technology either, you know. My background is business, and so I was looking at how can you apply these tools for businesses. And this was kind of a roadmap that we used on the consulting side of the business to talk to people. So we said, when I sit down to talk to any client about designing a new service or new services, we said, well, let's assess your strategy or your vision. You know, what are you trying to actually do? What are you trying to achieve? Let's, you know, develop some customer insights and insights about what the opportunities are and the offers that you have. And then you go and kind of design the service. And this was really before we'd applied Lean as such, you know. But what I've seen in the course of working in this area was that there was a lot of overlap and a lot of similarity between this type of an approach and then, you know, Lean and business model innovation, Alex Osterwalder and those kind of people, you know. So I guess what we actually did was probably a blended approach of Lean, customer development certainly, and this kind of service design, using some of the tools that are in service design as well. And I'll talk a little bit about them in a few minutes. So the starting point was Monday, the 27th of June or whatever. I had another meeting with this guy, and he said, look, there's a problem here, you know, the feedback I was getting all the time was, if you do something in this area of real-time customer feedback, we'd be interested.
We'd be interested in terms of we'd be a customer.
Yeah, well, that's what they said. Come back and talk to us. Yeah, exactly. That was the point. You know, we'd be interested in talking and exploring that more.
And they were in the hospitality business.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Predominantly the people I've been speaking to, it just happened that over a few months I've been speaking to a lot of people in the hospitality sector. And the conversation wasn't specifically about this, but in the course when I'd thrown out the idea around how do you get feedback, and what if you could get feedback in real time when the guest was still there. And they said, geez, yeah, if we could do that. Then they saw the possibilities there about if somebody tells us there's a problem, we can solve it before they leave, then they're not going to go and complain about us on TripAdvisor. And then they could see, there's a lot of research shows if you resolve a problem for a customer, then they actually become more loyal even than a customer who didn't have a problem in the first place, because now they trust you. And now they know that if there is another problem, you can solve it, as opposed to somebody else who's untested as such, you know. So they could really see that, and they said, you know, we'd be interested in being a customer. So we tried to, one of the starting points for us, and it kind of goes back to here, was around, you know, this piece here around your principles. And I found this very useful on the first day, you know, on the Tuesday morning after this, I wrote down what I thought were just some high-level principles, I said, for this business. So we said that as a business, it's the feedback channel is always available. It's available to everybody. It's location neutral. Feedback is actionable. And there should be minimal or no cost to guests for a hotel or users in general. And the one point I make about this is just by capturing this at the very beginning, it was very useful as kind of a reference board or a sounding board for a lot of the decisions that we made then over the next few months. So a simple one example was the first tech guy I met, which was actually the day after on the Wednesday. It's apps, 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 right? That's the tech guys screaming apps, right? The problem is not everybody has a smartphone still, unfortunately, even though apps are great. And so if it comes to customer service, you can't walk into somewhere and say, say to the customer, I only care what you think as long as you have a smartphone, you know?
And a lot of the folks that you're targeting, the ones that don't complain, that just move on, they're precisely the people that aren't that.
Exactly. So
the Twitterati love to.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's this thing, like we need. So if you look at hotels, for example, there's a lot of my own mother, for example. We need to have something that appeals to everybody, And so my point was by capturing this in the first day when I talked to the tech guy, I said, well, no, the tech, if I would just do that, then it doesn't make it available to everybody. Now, I'm assuming everybody has a mobile phone, but you've got to draw the line somewhere, right? So this was useful as a kind of a sounding board and a way to guide the decisions that we made in the early days. What struck me, I come from a business background, so the first question I said, is there a business in it, okay? And we did use, this is like Alex Osterwalder's business model canvas. So that was my first port of call, And you could see actually the dating, the 28th of June, it was the day after, so it was the second day. We just called it project was SMS feedback because I'd already decided by then the starting point of this was just using SMS because it's a simple technology. And this was really just mapping out, is there a business in it or not? And I think that my view of these kind of tools, both the business model canvas, the lean startup canvas and these, is that they're fantastic assessment tools. That if you want to do a quick assessment of something, then they're fantastic. The clarity of thinking that they give you, the questions that they ask you. I mean, I use this a lot with my own clients as a consultancy. And really, I always say to them, the value of it is not only the resulting document, the value of it is the discussion that you have to complete it, because that's where you identify opportunities, So my starting point was this, is there a business in it? Because it looks at the key elements of the business model. And frankly, this is the starting point. It didn't completely go miles and miles away from there. But then, just as a quick thing, what do we call it? What I would say is, if you start up, don't spend too long trying to pick names. We spent, everyone's been through this, I guess, the blank sheet of paper, writing down names, looking for domains, right? Because that's a whole sport in itself, right? Trying to find a domain, and then I call my business whatever domain I can find, right? Just be careful, you can go into a loop there. I got so bad, and this is luckily I only spent a day on this, that I started looking for the Japanese for English words in case the Japanese.com domain was available, right? Because then I had a nice story I could sell to somebody. If Yushi.com was available, well, Yushi means suggestion, and we're cool, we get customer suggestions. Anyway, it didn't work, we just stuck with instantopinion.com, that was the name we picked. Just don't spend too long on it. And this was really, so what did we do? On the next day, I set up this one page. It looks like shit, if you're hard language. I'm not a programmer, I just put up a one-page holding site as soon as I registered the domain. And I just put this is just what I said. I made that logo myself. Actually, I'm not even good enough to do it in anything. I made it in PowerPoint, and I just saved it as an image and used it. I said that's the name. I said it's real-time actionable feedback for your business, okay? Couple of lines, not very specific because I didn't know how to do it yet, okay? This was just a case of what I thought it might be, okay? And of course I set up an email, and I also opened up a Twitter account. And the Twitter one was quite good because what I did was I just opened it up. I knew there was a few people who had already told me they were interested in this, so on the 29th of June then I said our temporary website is up now while we continue development, okay? We hadn't really done anything as such, I'm not sure if everyone always tells the truth on Twitter, even up to yourselves to decide. But the point was that we did that, and I followed every hotel I could find on Twitter, okay? And by lunchtime that day, actually, I had a few inquiries coming back for more information. And that set a new challenge, because suddenly then...
Did you know that they visited your website at this stage?
I hadn't a clue. I mean, I had no analytics or anything set up yet, I just had the holding page. It was just that I got a couple of emails from hotels saying, that's interesting, can you have more details? Now, at that stage, I didn't really have more details. Okay, so I had to figure out what's next. What I would say is that then, I'm not a technologist, so I had to find a technology partner. And a big step really is to find the right technology.
It was ready, fire, aim. It was just get out there and then figure out the next steps.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Because, you see, that's how you test it. That was my thinking, right? That's how you find out if I did it and if nobody was interested in it, or if I did it and I got 10 people coming back to me and saying, oh, well, they do it, they're doing it, they're doing it, they're doing it. You know, I didn't want to waste my time. I give myself a week. That was the kind of time I set aside. I said, in a week I'll find out if this is a business or not, okay? But a key step for me was finding the right partner. A couple of reasons. Number one, you need somebody who can deliver the technology piece anyway, right? Because they have to be able to do it. But number two, sitting on your own, you won't do it. You'll actually give it a bit of effort and then you'll be distracted by something else. Immediately, by having somebody working with you, there's a multiplicative effect, you know, in actually delivering then and going and doing things by having other people working with you. And it's interesting now, if you look at a lot of the accelerator incubator programs for startups, they won't take you if you're a sole founder, you know. They'll only take you if you have a few people on a team. And in a way, I think they're right, you know, it's a simple filtering system, but in a way I can see the reasons for it. So you have to find the right partner earlier on, and luckily I did. There was another company that I knew who had worked in this whole area of, they'd done some CRM and they'd done a lot of mobile messaging stuff as well, and so they were a good fit. Went and spoke to them. They said, yeah, we love the idea and we're interested in working in return for like sweat equity basically in the business.
But you weren't worried that, sorry, are you okay with questions?
Yeah, do, yeah, please.
You weren't worried that they just kind of swallow it and run?
No. They were actually a small company as well, firstly. But I have this whole thing. A lot of people are afraid to talk about their idea. I'm kind of the opposite. I think that an idea is useless. First of all, an idea alone is useless. It doesn't mean anything. It just means the thought, right? It's only if you action it and do something with it. And so I'm more open to actually doing something with it, exploring it. So.
It evolved out of your existing customers saying, we have a problem.
Yeah.
And a light bulb. Did you have a light bulb moment, or did you go, oh gee, we
I had this idea in my head for about 2 years.
They were having a problem with feedback.
Yeah.
Or no feedback.
No feedback, yeah. Or no way of getting feedback from customers who were already there, you know, and getting aware of it instantly. That was the whole point.
And that was impacting their business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
If you had to pay for the development resources, would you have done so?
I think I would have, but it would have been slower to actually do it probably. That's what would have happened, because A, I didn't really have a lot of money to invest in it, because consultancy isn't as lucrative as you think. And B, it'd just take longer, because then you'd be more careful about qualifying them probably, you know. Whereas my feeling here was that these are guys, I knew them, I felt comfortable working with them. They turned around a simple demo system in 5 days, right? And it was just, from that point of view, there's huge value in that. For me, at that point, my priority thought was speed and validation, speed of information, testing this out.
And was there much, sorry for the question, was there much negotiation between the stake and the they would take?
No, that came about 6 weeks later.
Oh, so they did it on trust basically.
Just said, we'll figure this out. And that was a whole other discussion. That's probably a whole other talk actually, but my whole approach to that was, give me a ballpark that you're comfortable with, and I'll give you a ballpark I'm comfortable with. And if we're both happy, then we're happy. If not, it's not going to work. And that was the simple approach to that. Right? Yeah.
In terms of finding the right partner, I've had an idea taken from me before and chose the wrong partner. So I'm quite precious with the ideas. And could you have some tips if you're looking for somebody and you want to share your idea but not give too much away?
I'm probably a bad person to ask, because I probably did it the way you did it in the first place, where I'm a little bit more open. What I would say is the people I was talking to, I knew them, if you know what I mean. It wasn't a cold call. It was... Yeah, well really? Okay. But I mean, I find the stronger the network of the relationship that you have, you know what I mean? That if somebody recommends them to you, for example, and that's a strong tie. If you know them for a long time, that's a strong tie. If there's what I would suggest is just that you look at the whole relationship that you have with them, the network around them and around you, and how that interacts. And I kind of assess that and maybe strengthen that ahead of doing it. That's just my thought off the top of my head. But
Can I answer that from the partner side? Because on a number of occasions my company has been the partner that you guys might have come to. And from my experience, I would never go and take someone's idea, not only because of the trust thing, but because you need the visionary, you need the sort of the idea guy to drive it. You build it and you build it, you know, with their vision in mind. But if you don't have that, it's probably going to fail.
He was technical, I was idea.
Yeah.
I gave him pretty much all.
And did it work?
He just ran with it.
Did it work? It did. Okay.
Yeah.
In most cases, I would say it wouldn't work without your side of things, and without understanding the whole idea. You're saying, you know, don't give so much away. Maybe don't give your end game away 3 years down the line, but you need to give them pretty much everything to even.
I have to bear your soul, really, you know, at the time.
5
minutes.
more.
Okay, great.
4 exercise.
Okay, let's move on. That's probably a whole other discussion. Okay, I don't have 40 slides. So there, I found the right partner, and as I said, the customers were asking me for more details. I didn't have any at the time, but from talking to them, I don't know if you've done this before, but I use this a lot. It's a one-page proposal. If you Google it, you'll find it. There's a format for a one-page proposal. It works if you're making a proposal to an investor, for example. It's not technical, but there's a format, just the name, a kind of a tagline, the objective, some details, financial status and action. For me, I find it very useful to capture an idea as well. And on all of this, we talk about tools, you know, for doing things. This just helps you capture it again, because I used that then to create a one-page information sheet. That was the more information that I sent back out to the customers then. Lots of ideas then. Suddenly it became, well, how do you go and do it, right? I don't know, when I get kind of buried in stuff, I sometimes step back and use like a mind map or something like that to help me. I do find it useful. And this was around, now it's a business, so there's a business, there's branding, there's product development, there's processes, there's users. Suddenly now this is a bigger thing than just an idea, it's a business, so you have to kind of look at what needs to happen and how to prioritize it. And then I got to the Lean Startup Canvas as well, obviously, that, you know, a lot of people, everyone's familiar with. There's a lot of challenge. You know, I find this is great as well, and in particular, say the unfair advantage piece. It actually forces you to ask a lot of questions, you know, and you may not always have the perfect answer. I found that, like, for example, Enterprise Ireland loved that piece, the unfair advantage piece. They want to know that when you talk to them.
That's your edge, is it?
Yeah, it's what's different about you from your competition, and it's not an easy answer, an easy question to answer a lot of the time, you know. The key metrics are different. So this, if I was to look at what's different from the business model canvas, it's simply the layout, the problem and solution are different, but you have them anyway, you know, that's a whole part of your proposition. It's the key metrics and it's the unfair advantage are the two differences really. And then, you know, you evolve it to make it look a little bit better. And that was all in the first week, okay? Because as I said, I'd given this a week, and I said I want to decide after a week whether there's a business in it or not. But actually by then, I'd already invested too much in it, even though it was only a week, to actually go back, you know. And I had partners on board and everything like that, so whether I liked it or not, we were going ahead. And I'm not going to go through every week like that. So this was a simple demo system that the guys set up for me within 5 days, as I said. So on the second week, I went back to the customers who came to me and who said, this is, if you did something in that area, we'd be interested. And first of all, their surprise was fantastic, you know, that I went back a week later and showed them something. And this was just a very simple, this was an online dashboard, but basically we could demo it, you know, where somebody could send a message and it would pop up straight away on the dashboard. And they said, Jesus, we can get this information straight away. Just as some guidelines, show your customer something tangible or visual. People don't understand and don't listen to ideas when you just talk about them. Show them something. It doesn't matter what it is, show them something that explains what you're doing. At that stage, you're not selling. The easiest sales I ever did were these early ones, because I'm not actually selling, I'm just asking for your advice, your input. You know, what do you think? How can we make this better? Ask them what's missing and what's not needed. What's too much, what's too little, you know, where do you see the gaps? And then, would you pilot this and would you pay for it? Don't ask them how much they pay for it. Just ask them, would they pay for it? And, you know, this evolved over time. So, you know, I talk about 120 days. I actually said in my talk I could have been 90. That's because we all went on holidays in the middle as well. So we definitely could have done it quicker. So as it evolves and as you go through the different iterations of it, and they're like mini pivots maybe, they're not really, it was more developing the product. Then share the development work with the customers as well all along. So for example, we got valid feedback. One of the customers said to us, well, we like to track the cost of non-compliance. What would it cost us to recover from a service issue? So we simply built in a cost box here that the one customer had asked for, and then we went to all the others who had signed up and said, hey, we have this new feature, and they loved it. They thought this is fantastic, But really, it essentially came from one of the customers, But again, you're not selling what's missing. I'm going to keep going. Over half our features, if you like, came from customer requests. Okay, so we didn't really design it ourselves. We just had the idea. We put the simple technology in place, and we've evolved it from talking to our customers and working with those.
And did it evolve, Sarah, in sort of real time, or did you say, look, did you get into a release type of scenario?
No. I'll talk about that in a second. No releases. We just evolved it over time.
You didn't do any split testing or any of that to validate, like Eric comes right now?
I know I'm not really, I'm bad, kind of lean. But no, we didn't do that really.
Time's up now, so we're going to switch classes.
Okay, just 1 second, we finish up quick. It evolved over time, blah, blah, blah. Customer journey mapping, so service design, right? Two things I find very powerful. Customer journey maps, very strong way to communicate to people around their customer's journey, okay? If you want to know more about these from service design, just let me know, come and talk to me, I can share some information. Great way to communicate, like when I'm talking to a hotel, I showed them this and I said, this is what your customers go through, and then here, after they've gone home, 3 days later, you send them an email. Whereas with our system, from there, you can get feedback all the way through. A very powerful communication tool. Service blueprints are another one of mapping out your whole service from the customer's perspective. Very powerful tools, great for communication, and great for helping you within your business as well. What happened on October 24th? We went live into hotels. Here's my wrap up. Engage your customers early, okay? The initial meetings are critical, and you have to ask the right questions. Don't engage with a customer for months and weeks and then ask them would they pay for a pilot. Ask them at the beginning. Ask the right questions. Don't ask them how much would they pay. I went back out then after I'd done it, and I said, I went and met 5 hotels. I said, would you pay 500 a month for this? Would you pay 400, 300, 200? And I looked at what the reaction was, They wouldn't pay 500. Find the right partners. There's no big milestones. And this is the thing about releases. I thought about this myself. We avoided any big milestones. There was no big date we were working towards. There was no big release. There was no big event. It was really just an evolution over time. And that way, it actually took the stress out of it, I was thinking of writing a book at the time, because I felt great, about stress-free startup. It actually changes when you try to actually scale the business. That's where the stress comes in. But really, I found this, this is no big milestones. And then, what Lean Startup does, it de-risks as you go. It takes all the risk out of the business every week. That's it. Thank you very much. Cheers, guys. Thanks very much. Thank you. They're also very personal. I didn't try remote at the very early days. I used just Ireland as a start, and I went and drove a bit. Face to face, yeah. Thank you. Okay, what time is it now? Okay, I'll try and based on homeless industry, homeless sector. Oh, okay, I'm interested actually, yeah. No, this if I hope to be around still.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm waiting on a call for somebody to meet maybe. But if I am, it's certainly interested.
Keep in contact.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Appreciate that.
Look to
Okay, thanks, Mark. Yeah.
I'd love to work with you.
Yeah,
some
sure.
of the customer blueprints.
Oh yeah, the service blueprints.
Yeah. One of the things.
I work with Rory, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, we're quite well progressed, and we've built up a user experience in mind, and I'm aware of all these other tool sets like blueprints, which has been on my list always. I think I should really make an effort to do this, but I've always been reluctant to kick it off and spend an hour and then realise.
But you see, all you have to do is spend an hour, right?
Yeah. Well, I'd just like to get your general constructive feedback on how to approach it in a meaningful way,
Yeah, I think there's the most basic and the most powerful tip that I have, and you probably do the same, is just to break it down, right? These things, when you look at the whole thing, it's totality, right? It's huge. Like if you tried to say do a service blueprint for your entire process, it's huge.
You say pick a feature,
pick a little piece of it.
Yeah.
And there's the sales one. The whole sales one is around 5 stages. How do people become aware? How do they engage with it? How do they use? How do they continue to use? And what happens if they leave? Right? What do they do when you leave? And if you can design, your blueprint around those 5 steps, just at a simple level, very high level, okay. Then you can identify the areas where you need to focus more on. So, for example, if somebody uses Scurry, for example, right, and they're finished using it, right, the transaction is over. What happens then? Right, to re-engage then afterwards and that. And you could actually do a whole thing on that alone, almost. If that's what you identified as the opportunity, or also, a big thing is how do you take people from being aware to engaging with you, right? So if somebody's aware of it because they've seen an ad or something like that, well, how do you move that on?
I know what you mean. That's been great value to us. You were at Grants. Did you go to Valorant as well? And anyway, Grant's got the same structure. How do you get them from being a curious customer?
That's right. Exactly.
We weren't doing that on our life cycle at all. It was all use us. There's a big button with the call to action. There's nothing to bring them to that stage where they would then commit.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a big step. And even to engage with you is one thing. I mean, I find this in ours a lot. We get an awful lot of inquiries. We get an awful lot of people contacting us. We provide a lot of details. We get people even, there's phone meetings or anything like that. But then it's a big leap to get them to actually use it. Do you know what I mean? That's a whole other big
Which
step.
to us is important because we've pivoted slightly again and we're honing in on businesses. So it's all about repeat purchases, monthly subscriptions. But at the moment, it's not really a prototype, it's beyond that. It's even more than an MVP, but it's still a transactional. It's all about just getting them using it. We need to spend more effort on convincing them in the first place. Anyway, I better on to the next one.
Do you know what's on next?
I do here. I'm going to pick one.
Sorry, because I didn't take the picture, but now I have no idea.
We've got innovation we missed about was one. That was the guy who had that book. Then Evan said that. What to do and what to expect from early stage customer development and sales and business model presentations. That's what Sal was saying. If you want to talk about your canvas.
That's on next.
I'll give you a quick. That's what I'm doing. It's